God is infinite. This includes his traits such as compassion. The question is how to tap into it. So there's a method, and the method is called tshuva. Okay, clear? So what I'm going to tell you now, just in a very, 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 I'm warning you, superficial way, are the steps of tshuva. Next class, we're going to go through them piece by piece. The first step is being able to be honest enough to say, I did something that's wrong. Remember, a few minutes ago, I gave you a 30-second illustration of this. Now, here's where this gets tricky. If you ask a group of people, are you perfect or not, what does everybody say?
No.
No. But pretend I wasn't me. Pretend I'm the Arizal, and I'm like, back from the dead, like I've been, and I came into this classroom, and I could look at you and see your entire life. Pretend that that was the case. So I start telling you all the things that are wrong with you. Now, I'm obviously making this up, right? You're stingy. When it comes to money, you can't be trusted. You lie a lot. Why, there was the time you have no relationships that mean anything. Okay, got this? Now, suppose this was true. It wasn't true, but let's suppose it was. Would you suppose every word I said about each one of you was negative and true? Would you like me or not? You would hate me, and the truer what I said, the more you would hate me. You could see. So I want to tell you where this comes from. So last class we learned that before a person is born, their soul makes an oath. One half of the oath was be righteous, don't be wicked, which is why we all want to do the right thing. And if people are bad, they'll redefine wrong to make it right. But the other is, even if the whole world tells you you're right, in your own eyes will be as though you're wrong. You don't trust yourself. So because of that, if anyone tells you you're wrong, both promises are on the table. You have to feel like you're right, otherwise there's great inner discomfort, and you can't let anybody's words really not resonate. Okay, clear? So the problem with being able to say I'm not perfect is intellectually we admit that we're not perfect, but emotionally we're very, very reluctant to admit that we're not perfect. But nonetheless, the first step in tshuva is saying, I did this is wrong. So the only way to make this palatable is if you recognize who you really are. So that would mean a person like me does not have to do something like that. That's the basis of all tshuva. A person like me doesn't have to do something like that. So give me an example of something wrong that people like us could do. It doesn't have to be a true example of something you actually did. Just an example of something that people on our general level could do that's wrong. Lie. So make up a lie. Tell me like a lie scenario. But not like you tell someone you wear a different size and you wear something a bit more major. I always think like lying about sizes and weight is the stupidest lie in the world. Like if I were to tell you I'm a size 2, like Behemet, I may as well say you are a liar. Okay, clear. Okay, gossiping. I know why they got divorced. It was all her fault. Do people say things like this that aren't true? Okay. Okay, so that means you have to, if you admit this to yourself that this is wrong, here are some things that have to go along with it. But it was because, and then you blame, or it wasn't so bad. Okay. So the first thing you have to admit is that being wrong is normal, but you don't have to go there. You have choices. You could be different than that. That's step 1. Step 2 is acknowledging that whatever you did that you admit is wrong was bad for you. Not just bad for somebody else, but was damaging to you. So how, using the example that we're using, gossip, how would making up a lie in which you say somebody was divorced because it was all the woman's fault, how is that bad for you?
Could happen to you.
Could happen to you. Or not, yeah?
Puts you in a negative mindset.
Puts you in a negative mindset, it corrupts your sense of reality. It addicts you to blame. Okay, you should feel some guilt. Okay, it's healthy if you feel it. Okay, got this? So this is called regret. Regret is different than guilt. The voice of guilt is you're lousy. The voice of regret is a person like you, a decent person like you. It's affirmative. shouldn't be doing something like this. You understand the difference? Next step. And this is the step that's going to be the core of the next two classes. Make a plan. Make a plan. What are you going to do about your inner workings? What are you going to do to see that this doesn't become the real you? What are you going to do about this? Okay, that makes sense to you? So you have to have a plan. So we're not going to learn any plans today. That's for next time. The next step is not relevant in all situations, but it's sometimes relevant. If what you did wrong involved another person, and there could be things that you do wrong that don't involve anybody else. If what you did wrong involved another person materially, you have to also see that you make it up to them materially. So that would mean if you stole something, you have to give back the money. It's not enough to say, gosh, that was a terrible thing to do. Being a thief is so limiting. It means I don't really trust my own life. I don't believe that God gives me what I need. A person like me shouldn't steal. And leave them with $5,000 minus in the bank because you embezzled. No, you have to pay back. So paying back isn't about the other person alone. It's also about who? It's also about you. So I have to tell you a true story. So there's a men's yeshiva called Or Sameach. Did you ever hear of it? Okay, so it's like Neve, but man, okay. Where is it? Okay, whatever. In a whole other neighborhood. Okay. So they also have an Israeli branch. So one of the boys in the Israeli branch of Or Sameach was a burglar. Now you're supposed to ask, what's a burglar doing in yeshiva? So this is his story. When he was in the army, they taught him how to be a commando. Do you know what that is? It's like somebody who knows how to do all sorts of dirty tricks, like planting bombs, whatever. Somebody who's good with his hands. Okay. So when he was released, he didn't really have a marketable skill. So the army is good to the guys about this. They give them, the opportunity to take courses or go to university. They'll subsidize it. But he wasn't the sit behind the desk and learn to be an accountant type. So he didn't take advantage of any of these plans. But instead, he decided that the best thing for him to do was to become a burglar. And he liked it. He liked climbing the wall to get into the apartment, getting in quietly. He liked dealing with the real bad guys who you have to deal with when you're selling the stuff. He liked everything about it. Okay, could you understand that headset? Yeah, there was a lot of daring himself, that sort of thing. He was making very good money. So one day, it finally hit him that he's creating victims. Later, when he told his story, he said he had stolen from people who lived on the ground floor of an apartment building, and the next day he was planning to steal from people on the top floor, because it was like a dare to himself, because people are now more, they're watching carefully. There was a burglar. He wants to get into the top floor, even though they're being careful, and still, okay, got this? So he was passing, he was walking through the lobby, and he heard, it was an old couple who lived on the first floor. The husband was screaming at his wife, and he's saying, I told you 1,000,000 times, lock the door at night, it's your fault. Now the fact is he picked the lock, it was closed, and then he heard a slap that was so loud they could hear it past the closed door. Then it hit him, he's making victims. Until then he never let it in. So he decided, that's it, I've had enough of this. So he went to yeshiva. So he went to a class like this class, where the rabbi who was teaching says, well, you have to pay back if you've stolen anything. He says, I have a question for you. So he said, everything I own is stolen. I've never had a real world job. I got out of the army 10 years ago. I was 21. I got it like everything I own. My car, the clothes on my back. No offense to you, Rabbi, but I have a girlfriend and she's expensive. And, I've never had a real job. So the rabbi said, I better take you to a halachic authority, and he did. Took him to a Rav whose name was Rav Elyashiv. I don't know if you ever heard of him. Which, if you're crooked, it's like you're wasting your time looking for leniency from him. So he said, well, you basically have to pay everything back. So he said, how am I going to do this? So he said, don't go to yeshiva, get a job. Go study Torah at night. Okay, work out a plan. Try to figure out what your costs were for living these 10 years. Make a list of who you've stolen from that you remember. Slowly, you have to pay it back. Even if it takes you 30 years, you have to pay it back. Okay. Now, what made this story famous here in Israel is that he tried to do it, or made. So this didn't happen to me. I'm just like, everything until now was true. This didn't happen, this part, but it could have. Let's say I'm sitting in my living room, and so, there's a knock on the door. Now in Israel, this is part of the culture, it's one of the crazier things. As you're opening the door, you say, who is it? Miza, as you open. So I open the door, and somebody thrusts a bag at me. I say, what's this for? And then he's gone, and I hear a motorcycle downstairs. So I open the bag, and it's full of money. Okay, so this happened to many people. That's how he was paying things back. Because the rabbi didn't say he had to turn himself into the authorities, and he didn't want to go to jail. But he was something of a legend here in Yerushalayim, because this happened more than once, more than twice. So that's what tshuva means. It means returning. Now, could you see, if you were asking yourself, who's closer to being honest financially, him as he is today, having returned the money, or someone who never stole? What would you say? Him. So that's what tshuva is supposed to do, to make you more than you were before. Okay, clear? So how to do this better? Next time.